I appreciate all of you coming out this evening. All right, this is what it's all about, remembering and honoring and acknowledging the sacrifices of the men and women who have served in the armed forces of the United States. That is what it was all about. We have a lot of veterans here in the audience, and I always start off by thanking them for their service to our country. And what got me started was about 4 years ago. I was sitting in church with my wife at the Congregational Church, and I looked underneath a stained glass window and I saw a plaque that was probably 2 feet by 1.5 feet. And I asked her, I said, "What's the plaque?" "Well, I don't know." And I didn't either. So after the service, we got up, and this is what it was. And I said, you know, if people don't come to this church, they won't know about this memorial, because that's exactly what it was. It honored the members of the church that served in World War I and World War II. So I sat there and I said, I wonder how many others are out there. Well, that started my research. And 4 years later, I have discovered over 100. Now, I'm sure by the time this book hits the street, I'm going to have missed 4, 5, 6, or maybe even 10 of them. But I did my best. And it seemed like every time I turned around, I was finding one. Actually, there's 105 that are inside. And what resulted with all of the research was this book. And I think it's a great reference book for the veterans, for the residents, for researchers, for historians, because it covers a lot. Now, I want to make mention that I dedicated the book to William F. Hart. And by the way, this evening we have his son William G., his daughter Diane Weston, and Chip, the husband, and daughter Emily. And then we have Cheryl Hart, Kayla Hart, Troy Hart, and Dylan Hart, all relatives of Bill. Now, the reason why I dedicated it to Bill, he was a good friend and a very great activist, civil activist in the community. He was involved in a lot. Now, he was a city of Groton councilor at one time. He was a police officer. But more importantly, when we're connecting the veteran, connecting the dots here, Bill graduated from Fitz High School in 1950, and upon graduating, he joined the Army. Pretty much immediately, he went to Korea, and while there, in 1951, in May of 1951, he was wounded in the hand and the back with mortar fire. He recouped in Japan and then went back, and then in September, he stepped on a landmine and lost his foot and part of his leg. But that didn't prohibit him from leading a great life. He became a police officer, and I remember when I was growing up, him being a police officer. Now, Bill was a great person, but he also had a dry sense of humor. And I remember one day talking to him. I had just come from my physician, who indicated, "Jimmy, I want you to lose 50 pounds. And I said, "Doc, I haven't weighed 175 pounds since I was in high school." And Bill looked at me and he says, "You know, Jimmy, I had the same problem." He says, "I got out of high school and I went in the Army, and when I went in, I was 5'10". And when I got out, I was a foot shorter." And I just shook my head. And then he would tell different stories, but he was a great person, and I couldn't avoid not dedicating the book to him. He was also instrumental. When you leave here, the Groton Memorial Park is out here. He was instrumental in pursuing that, developing that, and then in the book, and I'll mention it during the presentation, he took about 3 or 4 years out of his life and did research on all of the casualties from Groton from World War I, II, Korea, and Vietnam. He did the biographies, and then he did a short piece of how the casualty occurred. That is included in the book. Now, she's already mentioned this. At first, I was going to donate the monies to the Wounded Warrior group, and then I said, you know, this is a local book, and we should keep it local as far as the profits are concerned. So the Groton Elks has a Veterans Committee, and they support a lot of local activities, but they really support the veterans at Rocky Hill. So I thought it was important to do that. So all profits from the book will go to their committee. Now, the memorials documented in this book, and she mentioned it when she introduced me, are plaques, monuments, statues, markers, buildings, bridges, highways, park fields, miscellaneous, you name it, it's there. I didn't realize this until I got started on the research, and then I said, this is going to make one heck of a book to do. Now, I'm going to give you an example of some of these, because I don't want to tell you the whole book, because then you won't have to buy it. You just look at the show and go home. This one bothers me a lot. If you go to the town hall here in Groton and you go in the side building, it's on the left-hand side of the picture of that building, and you go in there to go pay your taxes or to go to the town hall or go to the town records, you go right up the stairs. The next time you walk in that building, stop as soon as you enter and look to the right. This plaque is probably 5 feet by 8 feet on the wall as you walk in. And it's obscure. Nobody sees it. They walk right past it. Maybe in a while we'll ask the town if they can reconsider and place it in another location. Originally, it was located downstairs, and some of you may remember this. There was the council chambers was down there, but years ago, it was also a courthouse. That's where New London Court held, one of the places where New London held their court proceedings. And it used to sit in the back of the council, so it was very visible. Fitz High School. This was the original plaque that was at the Fitz High School, located at the bottom of Fort Hill, down next to the town hall. And it was dedicated to the people from World War II. And being the class of 1963, we had our 50th reunion a few years ago, and we thought it would be nice to have another plaque there. So we had this one made. And it was dedicated to the graduates of Fitz High School who have given their lives for our country. That includes all the graduates. But it was in memory of 2 of our classmates that died. One was Johnny Blunt, the other one was Drew Fiedler. In the Lower Mystic Cemetery, there's a mausoleum. In the mausoleum, you'll see on the outside is this plaque. And there's 2 people from the Groton area, Mystic Groton area, who have won the Medal of Honor. John Buckland is one, and I'll mention the other one as we go along. But you don't know where you're going to find these. That's what's important here. Because of the obscurity of these, I wanted to put it there in a book so you can open it up and see these. And if you want to go visit them, you can go touch it. Now, monuments and statues and markers, quite a few of those around. Of course, we're all familiar with the Groton Monument that was dedicated to the participants and the people that were, or the soldiers that were killed in the Battle of Groton Heights. Interestingly, if you look at this photograph, you notice the difference in color here. When it was first built, it had a flat top on it with a fence around it. And then 100 years later, they added the top to it. And I always tell the story when I was on patrol in the police department one evening, I was riding around the corner there during a lightning storm, and lightning hit that monument and the thunder came with it. And when it did, I went right back to the police station and I stayed there for about 3 hours because it scared the you-know-what out of me. Now this is the other one that's at, right next to and in back of the Groton Monument. And this was erected by Robert A. Gray, who fought in the Civil War. He's the other individual that won the Medal of Honor from Groton. And he was a civic-minded person also, involved in quite a bit throughout our history. And then there's a Oink Veterans Memorial. That's on that Route 215 as you go on the way into Oink. And some of these are very unique. That ship, or the bell came from a ship, and there's a long history on it. But they paid a lot of attention to this monument, and every year they have a parade that I believe either starts or ends at this memorial. Buildings. The Fieldhouse. A lot of people don't realize it. The Fieldhouse at Fitz High School was named after Johnny Blunt. He was one of our classmates that was killed in Vietnam. The Submarine Veterans Hall on School Street. Joe Negri was the founder of the subvets locally, so they dedicated that building after him. And he was very instrumental in the Submarine Veterans Organization. The William Seeley School that it's still being used as a recreation center, was named after William Seeley. William Seeley was the first person from Groton that was killed at Pearl Harbor. And before I get off the buildings, if you go on the submarine base, if you can, I had special dispensation and had one of their public relations officers escorting me to take photographs throughout the base. They probably have about 21 buildings that are named after Medal of Honor winners from the Navy. Those are all included in the book. Some of them have been torn down. We also have a chapter in the book for lost memorials. Bridges and highways. The Gold Star Memorial Bridge. And we were just discussing some of this before we started with the problem of getting onto the bridge this week. It was built in 1943, and it was called the New London Groton Bridge. That's what the name of it was. And then in 1951, they changed the name to the Gold Star Memorial Bridge. Gold Star for if a family member was lost in war, they would put a gold star in their window. So that was the Gold Star, and it was to recognize the veterans or the lost soldiers from New London, Groton, and Waterford. The sign on the right here is on a granite stone. It's in New London. There used to be one on each end of the bridge. And then when they constructed the new bridge and then reconstructed this into 6 lanes, or this bridge into 6 lanes, the one in Groton disappeared. And I had contacted our state representatives, and they contacted the Department of Transportation, and that plaque cannot be found. The one in the center is a gold star that is actually on one of the support stanchions. This is on the submarine base. The streets are named after the lost submarines. And you'll notice that you'll have the name of the submarine, the number of sailors that were lost, and the date it was lost. So it's a memorial, and as you drive down, it makes you think about the sacrifices that the people made. Now we talked about the Gold Star Memorial Bridge. I learned this myself doing the research. I had no idea of this. Not this one, I'm sorry, it's the next one. About 20 years ago, they did name the Route 12 from just before, I guess you would call it Kohl's, the shopping center at Kohl's. And you go all the way to the Pequot Bridge, just before the Pequot Bridge is now the Submarine Veterans Memorial Highway. And I didn't include the other one in, or maybe it's under miscellaneous. What I learned was the second bridge, the new bridge that was constructed, was also named for the submarine veterans. There aren't any signs around that you can see it. There is one inside the Submarine Veteran Hall. That's where I saw the sign. I said, what is this? And that's when they told me that the second bridge was named after the submarine veterans. Parks and fields, we have several of those around, but this is one that more recently came to light. I didn't realize this either. This is the Calvin Burrell Field. He was killed in Normandy in a tank accident, or not accident, but inside of a tank. About 8 months to a year ago, we had a tragic death over at a local restaurant where a young man was shot to death. And the family wanted to rename this field after the gentleman that got killed. The Parks and Rec director contacted me and said, "What do you know about Calvin Burrell's field?" I said, "Absolutely nothing." Well, I researched it, and that's why it was dedicated after him, because he was killed in Normandy. So you just don't change a name of a memorial field or a memorial to someone else's. So now what they've decided to do, there was a compromise, and they will be putting lights on that field so they can have different tournaments and things in the evenings for that. So, but I was not aware that this was a memorial until that Parks and Rec director contacted me. There's 2 baseball fields at the submarine base. And you wouldn't think about it. You drive past them, but as you go past the base, you'll see them on the left as you go down Crystal Lake Road. But right behind the home plates of both of them, there's the plaques. The book gives a little bit of history on all of these memorials. Not much, just a paragraph or so. But it does provide information on Mr. French here. The newer field, they wanted to name after Yogi Berra. And they tried to get in touch with him, and it never came to fruition. But they wanted to name the new field after him. And of course, he was a veteran also. His stories that his baseball career started here, played baseball here, but that the scouts scouted him here, and that's when he started with the Yankees after he got out of the service. And this is the one that I'm very proud of. I mentioned Mr. Hart earlier, and a few years ago on the town council, we made a recommendation that we add a new panel. There's large panels, they're 8 foot by 4 foot, and they're about a foot and a half deep, granite. There's 5 panels there, but what we wanted to do was recognize the veterans that were returning from Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Persian Gulf conflicts. So we put a committee together. Bill Hart was on that committee, and it took us about 2 months, but it is now there. And Matty Morton's in the audience here. He's on the committee, and I think we did one heck of a job getting that stone put in. We still have some more work to do, but we're trying to upgrade the park. We've put in 5 flag poles. We now fly flags from each branch of the service there. We have a Veterans Plaza where any veteran can be recognized with an 8-inch block giving their name, their branch of service, their highest rank, and either the dates of service or the conflict they participated in. Under miscellaneous, unbelievable. You drive by this every day, down near the filtration plant down on Thames Street. There's a griststone or a millstone down there. And it's for the honor, and it's unfortunate, there's a big error in here. It honors the prisoners of war from the Battle of Fort Griswold. Now that says there's 38, there were 28. But it's still a recognition for them. A lot of people don't realize what it is. It didn't come right away. That wasn't put up until the 1970s. The area that's right by the filtration plant there used to be a beach. I don't think I'd want to swim there. I grew up there, but I didn't swim there. Okay. There's a Spanish-American memorial gun at Fort Griswold. And at first I said, it's not a memorial. But then in doing the research, the day that they christened that, they also said, this is to memorialize all the soldiers from the Spanish-American War. So it became a memorial once once they did that. And then we have this one here, and that kind of hits close to home. This is located in front of the Municipal building, the City of Groton's Municipal building. It used to be down by the Electric Boat Company. When it was dedicated in 1902, they have an organization called the Daughters of the American Revolution. So if you're related to the soldier that was killed or fought in the American Revolution, you are a daughter of the American Revolution. Well, they also have the Sons of the American Revolution. And then they have the Children of the American Revolution. Well, the Children of the American Revolution wanted to develop a park down by Electric Boat. It wasn't Electric Boat then, it was Groton Iron Works. So the workers could have a place to read, like a library, and also a place to gather or have a cold drink. We go back in time, and for those that know about Mr. Plant, Morton Plant, very rich philanthropist, his wife was a daughter of the American Revolution and was working with the children. And they were trying to raise money to establish this monument. So Mrs. Plant went to Mr. Plant, and I'm sure there was some coercion there by asking him, Morty, the children need some money for this monument. And he capitulated and donated the money, but he had one condition. And again, we're talking around 1902. If I donate the money, I want the fountain there to have troughs, so my horses that come down to Eastern Point will have a place to drink also. So that's how that ended up there. And it remained there until the 70s, and fortunately they saved it, and it's in front of the Groton Municipal building if you want to take a look at it. This is the Veterans Recognition Plaza. This is part of the upgrades to this park that's out front here. Those are the blocks that we're talking about. And I'll push them, okay? Because what it does, it raises monies for the upkeep and maintenance of the park. Those flags that I mentioned, the 5 flags, are $70 a piece. They last like 6 months, so we have to replace them all the time. So the profits from this all go toward that. Stained glass windows. At the submarine base, at the Chapel of the Thames up there, there are a series of 12 sets of windows. And each one has a specific purpose and in memory of. They're all listed in the book. The Groton Heights Baptist Church, this is one you would not see. I just happened to go up there because we had another gentleman from the area that was killed in Vietnam, and they named a chapel after him at the Groton Heights Baptist Church. And when I went up there to photograph the chapel and the plaques for him, they mentioned this. Well, it used to be a stained glass window that you could see from the outside. Well, they put an addition onto the building, and when they put the addition on, it covered up the stained glass window. But if you go into their recreation hall, it's there, but you have to turn the light on to see it. And this was dedicated to the people from World War II veterans that attended the church. Now, these are not geographically located in Groton. This is what you discover when you start researching. The one on the left is a Merchant Marine monument. And my wife and I went over there, and actually there's like 4 monuments there. There's 4 different dedications. And you stop and think about it, a lot of people don't think about the Merchant Marines, but during World War II, they were very important to us. They transported our troops, they transported our equipment, they transported our materials that we needed for the war. And I learned also, not only did they have a Merchant Marine on there operating the boat, but the Navy had gunmen on these ships. And we lost both. The pilots of the boats as well as several of the Navy personnel. So that's over there. I just happened to stumble on that because I was looking for another monument that is obscure. It's in here. From somebody a captain that participated in the Battle of Fort Griswold, came over from Fort Trumbull during the battle, fought, and then went back. And they have a plaque. And the plaque's located inside of a powder room, blockhouse. And it's locked, and there's a gate inside of it, and that's locked. And you really can't see this memorial. But I got a hold of the park director, park ranger. He let me inside. We unlocked the doors. So now we have a picture of that plaque that's inside. That's when I found this one. When I was over there looking for that, I found this one. A few months ago, I gave another presentation relating to some of the monuments. And I mentioned the monument that we have, it's in New London on William Street, for the 21st Company A of the 21st Volunteer or Regiment of Connecticut Volunteers. That's the one where that Robert A. Gray belonged to. So I'm mentioning that, and there was a young college student in the back of the class that came up to me afterwards. He says, "You didn't mention the one up in Norwich." I said, "Which one in Norwich?" I never heard of it. So it was for Company K of the 26th Regiment. In my research for that, there was close to 50 people from Groton, 50 soldiers from Groton that were in that Company K. So that's why this is dedicated to them. So they are located outside. The Soldiers Sailor Monument in New London, downtown New London. If you look up at it, it says Groton, and that's for the Groton Battle of Fort Griswold. So that one is technically connected to us. Now, discontinued and lost memorials, we have them. We don't have them. That's a problem. We don't have them, but the book has them. With the exception of all but one, I did locate photographs of them. And in all my presentations, and you'll see one here, I believe, I will not apologize for the quality of photographs that appear, because at least we have a photograph, and you can picture it in real time, if you, for lack of other words. This one on the right, on this side, my side, is in Oink. Remember that monument I showed with the bell? That's in Oink? This preceded it. And then the one on the left was at the Groton Heights Baptist Church. And the Boy Scout troop used to meet there. So they listed all the members of the Boy Scout troop that were in World War II. Right? So they had that plaque standing outside. All these wooden plaques are gone. If you go up to Fort Griswold, you'll see a tall, slim monument. In fact, Mr. Hart was instrumental in gathering that one also. There was a wooden plaque there. We don't know what happened to it, and no one has a photograph of it. I have a newspaper photograph, and it's terrible. It's in the book, but we have a picture of it. And they listed everybody from Groton that participated in World War II. Their names were on that plaque. Electric Boat Company made the name plates to slide into it. Again, that was from Oink. Right, below the bridge where the Flasher Memorial is now, there used to be a rotary. And on that rotary, Norm, you may remember this, I remember it, right? There was a cannon down there. It was a French cannon, and a gentleman from that used to run the old Groton hardware store. He came back and acquired that. It's a French cannon, and they dedicated it to the soldiers from World War I. And it remained there for years. Unfortunately, the wooden wheels rotted out on it. And I remember when I was on the police department, the cannon portion was in back of the police station. And somebody came down and said, geez, we'd like to restore that. And what we'll do after we restore it, we'll use it in parades and things like that. So the city gave the cannon to the person. The person did restore it. He went down to Amish country. He had new wheels put on it. But unfortunately, he sold it for $10,000, so we don't have it anymore. All right. Veterans Memorial Highway. This is an interesting story. Where Fitz High School is, the new Fitz High School, the high school I went to, there was a road there, a very narrow road called Brook Street. And I used to run past the school and down into Oink, Groton Long Point. And then they widened the road and made it Route 215. When they did that, there was a meeting held with the residents, and they wanted it renamed Veterans Memorial Highway. It was approved. It went to the state. The state approved it and started putting it on their maps. And then the residents of Groton Long Point said, whoa, 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 we didn't attend the meeting, we're sorry. We want it changed to Groton Long Point Road. So we had Veterans Memorial Highway for 3 months. And now we have Groton Long Point Road. So it's a lost memorial as far as I'm concerned. Now we have 2 special chapters in the book. We have one for the lost submarines. There were 52 submarines lost in World War II. And if you go down to that Submarine Veterans Memorial Park, World War II submarine veterans actually established that. It's a beautiful park. They've really brought light to the submarine community, and it's visited quite often. Well, they also brought in the flasher, the conning tower from the submarine flasher. Now, interesting, I have this 3 times in the book. One, because where it's located now is the second location. When it was first brought back, it was up on Route 12 at the entrance to Nautilus Park. They had some vandalism to it, and then the subvets got involved and they established the park down on Bridge Street by Thames Street, and they brought it up here. I have it the 3rd time in the book because there's a plaque on the side here where this conning tower was dedicated to the commander of that boat. Right, so actually we have a lost memorial because it was lost from Route 12. Then we have a present memorial because it's down here at the Submarine Veterans thing. And then we have it named after or in honor of the commander of the boat. They also established, just like the Vietnam Wall, they established one for the lost submarines. Every sailor that was lost on the submarine name appears on the black granite wall. So I went to the subvets, and when they dedicated this wall, they had a special booklet, and they granted me permission to put the information on all the submarines that were presented in that booklet, as well as photographs of the wall. So they're all in this book. The second portion of the book, or extra chapter that we have, is Casualties. This is one of the panels I talked about that's out here. It lists all 67 casualties from Groton. This is the one that Mr. Hart researched, every one of those names on that wall, and hopefully we'll never have to add to that wall. But he did the a little bio, and a little bit of the circumstances of the death of each one of those. They called it the 20th century panel. After they established the park had actually 4 panels, one thanking all veterans, and then one said World War I, World War II, one that said Korea and Vietnam. So they had 3 there, and then the 20th century came along, so we had the 4th one, and now we've just added the one for the Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, the willingness of American veterans to sacrifice for our country has earned them our lasting gratitude. That's a quote from this gentleman, Jeff Miller, and I completely agree with this. And I think it's an appropriate thing to keep in our memory. Now, for tonight, I want to thank all of you that have are veterans or active duty people. I want to thank you for your service. Without you, we wouldn't have the country that we have today. Thank you. Have a good night.